I'm Jeff Seeley from the Bowling Green District. Mr. Cully is out of town on his way back. And just for everybody that can see, I think all the department heads here, because I think we're going to need input from each one of you about different aspects, as I've talked to board members about how we want to handle different aspects of the county business. So I think it would be helpful to have input from all of you, the department heads that run all those different organizations. We're working on a resolution. It's not complete, so we probably won't have the actual language tonight, but I'm trying to get that together so that it can get signed fairly quickly. But we can declare the emergency tonight, and Mr. Cully and I will finish all the paperwork. I'm just trying to get all this stuff lined up. As everybody knows, this has been pretty fast moving. I talked to Mr. Thomas at 11 o'clock, so we've gone from 11 o'clock of talking about this to tonight having the meeting. The governor has declared a state of emergency, and as everybody knows, all the schools in the state have been closed for the next 2 weeks, which I think poses some interesting situations for Carolina as our spring break starts that third week. So unfortunately, I don't know if there's anything that can be done about that. I think it just sort of happens the way it happens and rolls on. Meadow Event Park, I see they are here. I understand that you have shut down all events. Marlene, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So we yesterday made the decision, well, we had one cancellation. We have some promoter shows, and then we had our own event with the Secretariat event. So we canceled it yesterday. Right now, anything that was on the books through the end of March is canceled. We're trying to move some shows, so we'll reschedule if we can in July. I had a board meeting this morning with Farm Bureau, and basically we're kind of looking at a window of March into, I calculated our financial impact to the end of April. And so in my planning methodology, I'm planning worst case, hopefully, that we're looking no further than the end of April. And we have an event, the Farm Festival, that is on the books for May 2nd and 3rd. And obviously, it depends on, we decided today that we're going to look at a 2-week window. And then in 2 weeks, I'm going to make a decision on whether we move forward with that, attempt to move forward or not, and just calculate what the financial risk. We're just trying to curtail the financial impact, and we maybe look at the public health initiatives, look at what's happening in our industry, and so right now it's kind of a moving target. But we are being very conservative and trying to follow what's happening. I did get an email today, and it was on the news this evening, that King's Dominion has delayed their opening until April the 4th, I believe, which kind of ties in with the time frame from all of the announcements we've assessed and looked at that window, assessing everything around the 1st of April to see where we're at, to know where we're heading from there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Calveric, we talked a little bit about schools. I know that spring break, the governor has closed schools for the next 2 weeks, and that our spring break actually starts on that 3rd week. So I don't know if you're going to change plans or leave that. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about what that meant, because I know that's going to be a zillion questions. So let's just start there.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Seeley. I have provided you with some documentation that has been underway and provided to our community via multiple methods, email, phone blasts, as well as we've created a website attached to the CCPS website solely dedicated to coronavirus information. The information you have on the top page is hot off the press. It literally went out to our school families within the last hour. It outlines not only our methods for continuity of instruction, which will be provided both in an online manner as well as a hard copy format for the families that do not have access to broadband. These items will be available to families beginning at noon on Tuesday if they need to come into the facility to get a paper copy. We have all of our buildings manned. We will have each facility manned through Wednesday, and beyond Wednesday, our 12 and 11 and 10 and a half month employees will then be telecommuting. Unless there is a demand for us to be present physically with one another, we will be practicing social distancing. The food service sites are outlined on this document for you. We have identified 4 locations for food service. We will be serving meals, both breakfast and lunch, to all Caroline County children. They do not need to be a CCPS student. They need to live in Caroline County. They need to be 18 years and under. They must be in the vehicle with their parent in order for them to receive a breakfast and lunch to go bag. They can receive both meals at the same time. These meals will be delivered at Lewis and Clark, Bowling Green, Madison, as well as Caroline Middle School. Again, I'm going to repeat those. Bowling Green, Lewis and Clark, Madison, and Caroline Middle School will be our 4 available food access sites to address food insecurity. And I think it is important to note that these facilities will be operational for food between the hours of 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. We will, of course, and I'm realizing you may not have the back side of this letter, and I apologize, we were just running them prior to coming over here. The back side of this letter outlines our cleaning process. Our deep clean will entail a top to bottom overhaul of all facilities as well as department buildings. It also will include overhaul cleaning of our transportation vehicles. You will be seeing, if you travel 207 regularly on Monday, all school buses will be centrally located at the high school utilizing the side and back parking lots. This will enable all of our drivers to work on Monday collectively. They'll receive a training on how to clean their bus, provided with the EPA approved products, and they will each be responsible for cleaning their bus and then having it checked for auditing purposes by a supervisor. All of those buses will be located at the high school throughout the day, and then those that need to transport them back to their home will store them at their home during the length of the closure. Are there any other specific questions that I can answer at this time?
One question. You will still roll into spring break at the end of the 2-week closure is the big question.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. We did address in this notice to families that at this time there is no plan to adjust our previously scheduled spring break, which actually is from April 3rd through April 13th. So there are technically 3 weeks between today and the beginning of spring break. So technically we are closed for 2 weeks. We would have students, if the closure is lifted, and that is an if, we have been told by the governor as well as the state superintendent that we will be receiving regular notifications regarding the release of that closure. And so if we are able to return to school on that Monday, March 30th, if my memory is correct, we will have school Monday the 30th, the Tuesday the 31st, Wednesday, April 1st, and Thursday, April 2nd. We just modified our calendar due to no inclement weather and gave Friday off before spring break. So that Friday is currently off, and we will continue forward unless we find ourselves in a situation that requires altering our instructional calendar.
Okay, board question? Mr. Underwood?
Dr. Calveric, do you anticipate any financial impact?
Yes, sir, we do. We just completed a conference call with the superintendent for the state. We are working with USDA. We are required to submit a waiver associated with the funds that will support our ability to provide access to food. And so we have begun that process with Mr. Connor, who oversees the Food Nutrition Department. We also have spoken about any potential impact on ADM. Please keep in mind that these absences are under a state closure, and so we will all receive a waiver for these 10 days. and they will adjust the numerator and denominator for ADM, and therefore we will not have any financial impact associated with that. And we still will use, at this point in time, March 31st as the final date for ADM calculation. However, they did indicate that that may be changed dependent on how this situation evolves.
Thank you.
We, of course, have additional costs that were unexpected for cleaning supplies. We are purchasing an additional hospital quality cleaner that has 360 potential. We already have one, but we feel with multiple facilities, a second one is necessary. So there are some innate costs associated with response.
Thank you.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, I just, thank you for talking with me today. I appreciate
Sure.
that. And then thank you for adjusting that for the lunch. I really wanted to say that. I just have one quick question. When you're on a regular spring break, do kids have that opportunity as well? I mean,
Great
like
question.
on a regularly scheduled, spring break, winter break, I honestly don't know that. So.
Right. We do not currently provide access to food over winter or spring break. We do provide it over the summer months. What we do over winter and spring break is work with our local churches, and we do our backpack program where students are able to carry home items. Additionally, some of our churches will offer, in our absence of that food allotment, they will offer meals and provide that information to schools. And in turn, our school counselors will provide that to our families who are qualifying for free and reduced lunch. So while the schools do not implement this program, there are outlets available.
So just to reiterate, any child under 18 years old can pull up to one of these elementary schools between 8 and 1 and get their free meals.
Any CCPS resident that is 18 and under can access breakfast and lunch. They'll receive the 2 bags per day at any of our 4 sites, which are the 3 elementary and the middle.
Okay. Thank you.
Other board members' questions? Mr. Thomas, questions? You're very welcome.
Actually,
Thank you. And thank you for your
Mr.
support. I appreciate the
Forehand?
phone calls today.
Dr. Calvert. Sorry, I was popped in my head.
Sure.
Is there the kitchen staff, are they going through some sort of special protocol to screen them? Because they're preparing all this food for all these kids? Or is it prepackaged stuff only?
When you say screening, can you provide additional clarity for me, please?
I mean,
I guess he's wondering what we're actually serving.
Oh, certainly. USDA guidelines are very regimented.
Right.
The
Now,
bagged lunches fall under
I see.
traditional USDA guidelines. They actually,
it's not what I was asking, actually.
You're talking about the workers?
Yeah, the people preparing
The
meals,
food.
The food.
sure.
Or-
There are no plans at this time to screen any food nutrition workers. They do, of course, use all the typical precautionary measures. Additionally, all of our staff has received on multiple occasions the attributes associated with symptoms for coronavirus, and so they're extremely diligent in monitoring their own personal health and are asked to report to their supervisor immediately if they are feeling under the weather. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
That is not something that we have specifically addressed in any of our electronic communication. We do often capture in a statement that if a family has an individual need, they are to reach out to their school, their child's school or schools, and speak directly to either the school nurse and or an administrator. And we certainly have staff available through Wednesday that could help accommodate individual scenarios of that nature, Mr. Thomas. That is not something that we have advertised, but we did say if you have an extenuating circumstance that requires additional support, and we've been putting that in response to Facebook posts as well, please contact the school. We want to work with you to ensure our students are taken care of over this period of time.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Calveric. I'm going to go down the list of things that I got from board members in my conversation today. One of the comments was, do we want to close the library? So I'm glad to see the librarian here to talk about her facilities, staff, and questions from the board.
so I didn't have very far to go today to be here tonight, so that's always a good thing. So far, we have been doing enhanced cleaning in all of our libraries, making sure that we wipe down computers, soft surfaces. We took up all the soft toys in all of our branches. Staff took them home to run them through a hot dryer, and hopefully we're just going to keep them out for now. Been tracking what other libraries have been doing in the state so far as of, say, 5:30. Richmond City public libraries are all closed for the next 2 weeks, and Rockbridge County is closed for the time being. There's not a specific date that they will be coming back, but they are providing curbside service and phone assistance. So there won't be anybody in the libraries except for staff, sort of bringing people out stuff and things like that. So.
Let me get some questions. Do you have a preference, open, closed?
To be honest, I would think that social distancing measures would not be very effective if the schools are closed, because that's a lot of times the school kids will come into the library, which we would normally encourage, but we have a lot of, we have the AARP in right now doing the tax preparation. So we have a lot of older folks coming in through the library, so it's going to be a lot of contact. That being said, the AARP is here right now, and we have, every day has, at different branches, has tax appointments, and they are booked, I know at my library through April 6th. So it's going to be trying to adjust those, but it's like you have to weigh out safety versus a couple of angry patrons. So.
Questions from board members? I've got a couple, but I'll let Mrs. Long.
Mr. Seeley, I did get a call today from the administrator for the town of Port Royal, and they were reaching out, and I haven't gotten an answer back yet, but their concern was because there are 2 meeting rooms in that little building, and a couple of the groups that meet on the other side, if they hold their meetings, are older people. They were concerned that with the library remaining open during this period when the schools were closed, that it would be used as a babysitting facility pretty much, and that it would not only overwhelm the library, but their clerk's office is right next door with an open window for people to talk to her through from the library because it's such a small building. So I think they may be requesting that the Port Royal branch be closed for the next 2 weeks, but I don't have a definite on that. But that's their biggest concern, is the overload of children and either the older people contaminate, whichever way it goes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That branch is very small, so you get more than 3 people and you've run out of 6 feet to keep everybody separated, so.
Mr. Forehand?
If we have certain situations, such as the Port Royal, I would prefer to us, my preference is to address those individually and not just make a blanket. Because, we're going to have a 2 weeks of inactivity, we need an outlet for them to go. But at the same time, if someone's sitting there hacking, we have to have some sort of protocol to ask someone to leave if it doesn't already exist, if we're going to remain open. And I don't know if that's something that your staff feels empowered to do, or...
We did have a patron come in earlier this week who had pneumonia and still decided to come into the library, so we try and be as delicate as possible with things like that, emphasize our e-resources, things like that. I promised to drive this particular patron's books out to her because she comes to the library almost every day. But obviously we can't do that for everybody, so.
Mr. Underwood?
Yeah.
I see. I'll get you, Mr. Thomas.
Yep. Respectfully to my colleague, I absolutely disagree. You don't know what's going on when students are away from the library or a place where people are gathering. And based on everything that's on the news, students could very well be a carrier, but not
Manifest any
manifest
symptoms.
any symptoms. So I think if my feeling is we're going to do this, it should be blanket. we shouldn't have to make and adjust policies based on proximity. We should look at it and determine that it's a hazard to workers, it's a hazard to anyone coming to the library. Therefore, we need a policy or a statement that is a blanket, not individual. That's my feeling. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Could, Mr. Thomas, because you know we cannot hear you on the camera, so I'm going to repeat your question, so I'm trying to. Well, the continuing education, Dr. Calveric, is that, let's short circuit this and run this to ground while we're all in one room.
Our continuity of education packets are available online and in hard copy. They do not require access to the internet. They can be enhanced by internet access, but they are able to be completed in its absence.
So there's no quote-unquote requirement?
No, sir. There is no requirement for internet access. Certainly, they can be a bit more creative if they have it, but it would not hinder their ability to complete the review and reinforcement activity.
Okay.
I'm not certain I understand what you're asking. All Chromebooks are up to date. No, sir. We are actually not using Schoology, the learning management system, because of that actual unknown factor of when a closure may or may not occur. We knew that it was likely to occur from the governor in a very quick and expeditious manner if that was to come to fruition. And so we identified the website as a more easily accessed location. So people that have internet access need to solely go to the Caroline County Public School webpage. What they will see is they will see elementary broken into pre-K, K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12. They'll open up those tabs, and then within each of those levels, they will find assignments / activities associated with the core content. English, they will find math, science, history. At the high school, we've also included CTE because many of those have specific hours that are associated with those courses. And we have also included advanced placement and dual enrollment assignments as well because, of course, those have requirements from higher education. But everything will be accessible online. And then if a person does not have access to that, they are going to be able to come into the facility or phone us if they don't have transportation, and we will make sure that they can get those paper copies available with that exact same information.
Thank you, Dr. Calveric.
Mr. Thomas, just so you know, some of our libraries do have light Wi-Fi capabilities. I know the Ladysmith branch, if you sit in the parking lot, you can usually catch the Wi-Fi. Unfortunately, down in Dawn, this signal's just not strong enough down there, but here in Bowling Green and even in the Port Royal branch, there is some internet outside of the
I had
library.
Mr. Schiebel check here all the parking spots along the building, and everything in the back has good access. So we do, and I guess I'll do these one at a time. Libraries open or closed, I'll take a motion. Let's just attack these one at a time because I think it'll be easier.
I'll make a motion that we do not close the libraries.
I got a sense that the library, the sense of the board is that the libraries need to be closed, and we can.
Well, I have,
Right. There's no second. If there being no second, the motion dies. I'll take another motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close all Caroline County public libraries for the duration of our emergency
Are we gonna do this in the 2-week governor
That's why I
increment?
said the 2 week.
Okay. I have a motion, do I have a second?
Mrs. Sealy, I'll second only for the point of discussion. So we can
Okay, I have
move
a
on to
motion and a
discussion.
second, further discussion.
I guess I'm sitting here thinking there are some people, such as the lady that you took books out to, and there's probably some work that the staff can do, even if they're not open to the public. But if we could do
So you want
some
to-
curbside deliveries to people who
Well-
want things or to call in, then we're doing a little bit of service, but there's not high contact or 15 children or a group of 20 coming in.
Let me ask this
Plus
in the
we have
discussion.
tax thing.
Could we have the tax preparation, it's by appointment, correct? So you
Yes.
know who's coming?
Yes, we have the phone number so we can call anybody who
Can
has
you
an appointment.
have I hate to turn those people away during tax season because it's one of those, you get an appointment. Could we facilitate the tax people with staff to make sure that the door gets open, they come in, they do taxes, is that doable?
It would be tough. I will say that. Just trying to make sure that we keep people who don't actually have appointments from coming into the library. They have a hard enough time when we are open that people just kind of wander back there and are like, why don't I have an appointment? So,
Could we put a sign in the window, appointment only, a sign-up sheet?
yeah, I mean, we could use the sign-up sheet to allow people in based on that.
And this is, I mean, here's the other dilemma that I want to talk about while we're in discussion is, if we close, we'll have no staff.
Mhm.
And I don't know that we're thinking about the other side of the equation. I understand Mrs. Long's point of keeping staff, because there are probably things that could be done in this period of time that you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
And if you have tasks like that, and the library could be open to people with taxes with appointments, I think that would keep you and your staff more engaged than just closing the library, shutting off the lights, locking the door, and somebody comes in once a day for an hour or two to make sure everything's okay. Can we modify your schedule and your staff to do things underneath your purview that you think need to be done and do taxes?
We could do that.
Well, no, I understand, but that's what brought it to my mind when you said that. How about
Do we
if,
want to
Let me
add?
modify.
I was gonna ask Mr. Underwood if he would amend his
Let me
motion.
amend my motion to say that the library staff would be available for the tax preparation and for services, curb services to the public.
I will
Not open
say,
to-
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The tax preparers have been talking amongst themselves about what they will do. They're all volunteers, so there is the chance, however slim, that they will decide amongst themselves that they do not want to come in, even if we're closed to the general public, except for taxes.
Let me get through your motion, Mr. Underwood. Mrs. Long,
Second that amended motion.
that's what I need. So let me tackle one more issue. We can do this and then we'll come, I want to stay on the library a second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr.
The motion is to close the library to the general public with the exception of tax preparation and curb service for people coming to the library. Yeah.
You didn't hear him, George? For some reason, Mr.
Okay.
Underwood, they can't hear you out there, so.
Okay, one more time. The motion is to close the library with the exception of tax preparation and curb service for Caroline County residents.
Mrs. Long,
Second.
are we all clear? Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying.
Actually, I'm preparing other things to consider.
Well, I've got some others in the live, so if you'll stay.
Mhm.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I thought we were in discussion.
I don't, I didn't realize that you were still, because there are other topics on this to still discuss.
Well, we're
Okay, go
voting
ahead.
on a motion. I need
Go
the
ahead.
opportunity to
Go ahead.
discuss. We could also go to an appointment schedule for the library as well, correct?
We could, it would take some doing, but I think we could.
Even
but
if it's, we're only letting 3 people in, you got 15 minutes, find what you want, get out. Next 3 come in.
the,
I mean, we're concerned with groups,
Mhm.
okay?
Yeah.
And we can manage who walks in the door and who walks out the door.
Mhm.
If we can, I think that if we're really concerned, then we should cancel the AF for the tax preparation. We should close the landfill. We should have all the firefighters stay home. We should have the clerk's office. We should have them all. No public contact whatsoever. But that's not what we're looking at. And I don't value the clerk's office any less than a librarian, any less than a firefighter or a police officer or an admin at a somewhere.
Remember, I'm going down a list of issues because every office has got questions. So this is
Agreed.
This is
Agreed.
just the library.
I understand.
Okay.
It is a service that we provide. If we are concerned with groups, then we do something to address the groups. And we're fully capable of addressing having 40 people inside the library or having 4. We're already making an exception to have appointments made. We could do something similar instead of just shutting the doors and feeding into this hysteria that we can't have one-on-one contact, because we're doing one-on-one contact 100 times a day, even with the quarantine. The people that are at risk are going to be at risk one-on-one or in groups of 40, just less of a risk one-on-one. And if we can make it a small group, then so be it. But we have 0 cases
I
in this
think the
county.
real
We have 2 within 50 miles of here.
I think the real problem is surfaces and I mean, people, you can't control somebody coming in sick. And I think by appointment, and if the tax preparers decide they're not going to do that, now I don't know how you're going to get people by appointment. Mr. Underwood?
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect to my colleague again, it's not hysteria when tens of thousands of people have died. It's not hysteria. This is real, and we're trying to be preventive rather than reactionary. We're trying to prevent from having issues in the county. There are issues that showed up in Hanover. Well,
We should put up roadblocks and just close the whole county down. We're closed.
I think that's pretty short-sighted on your part, Mr. Forehand. I just think that you're not being rational at this point. We're trying to make some rational decisions to protect the citizens of Caroline County. That's what we're trying to do. It's really that simple to me, for me.
Mrs. Long, you have your mic on.
Yes, I do. And I see value in both sides. And I think the library staff is certainly the one to guide on this. I do see where if someone wanted to come in and make some copies or pick out a book or pick out a DVD.
Or apply to college.
Or apply to college, right. And have a 15 or 20 minute or whatever window. You know, they wipe their hands when they come in. They spray the area where they're at when they leave. You have time in between. It's doable with the guidance of the library staff, but I think we need to be guided by what they feel comfortable with doing, as well as not making it a burden on the citizens. I totally forgot that college application time is busy right now. However, they're going to work on those applications and get them in.
There are going to be exceptions to for universities, the high schools making exceptions, everybody's making exceptions to accommodate, to ensure that there's the least amount of contact as possible. They're not just gonna say, oh, we're not gonna take your application because you didn't apply within the window that we were closed. We have to use some common sense here.
But I think
They're not gonna just shut the door.
My point is, I think the staff knows what they feel comfortable with, what they can control. We should sort of follow their
Chief
lead.
Loftus,
And if that's
can you come
closing
up a
it,
second?
that's fine. But I do worry about people with appointments because they're not gonna be able to reschedule. That thing is booked up.
They are talking about extending past tax deadline if they do move the tax deadline, but we'll say that about 50% of my staff, I did a sort of informal poll, are considered high risk. We have a lot of retirees that work at the library, so if I only have 9 staff members for 4 branches, it's going to be tough. I understand Mr. Forehand's idea. I think it would be hard to do on a turnaround for Monday, so maybe if the 2-week closure extended, that would definitely be something that we would work on.
Or just open 2 branches instead of, you
Yeah.
know, 4.
Mhm.
Just, you know, just a thought.
Yeah.
But that's
Because
a
the
good
people that are at
point.
risk are gonna be at risk in the grocery store. They're gonna be at risk if they go to McDonald's. They're gonna be, they're the population that's most at risk, and they're having one-on-one contact, whether we wanna understand it or not.
Mhm.
They are having one-on-one contact. Yeah, anyway.
And we have no control over people going to McDonald's or anywhere else, but we do have some control of our public spaces. And that's what's important, and that's why we're talking about a emergency within Caroline County. If that's the case, then there is no need for an emergency declaration. There is none.
I would
then.
agree with
If-
that statement.
So, if you want, people can go, we're not saying people can't go where they want to go, but but we have to ensure that we're doing what we can to ensure that this pandemic does not spread throughout our county.
Do you feel like you at least have latitude in what we're saying with by appointment to actually facilitate the library?
Yes, we would definitely need some time to make it work, figure out how we would work it out with the other branches, so.
I mean, I think,
Would we wanna,
do you need full staffing under the scenario that we currently have?
We could make it for probably a week without full staff, but after that, it would be very rough.
Well, I'm just saying,
Oh.
with the change scenario,
No, we would not need full staff for that scenario.
let me, are we saying we're gonna lay people off? Or are we gonna compensate people that aren't working? Because what we're doing is we reduce these hours. We're reducing everything. So that's gonna be the next question that surfaces, and I know I've got a motion. Mr. Underwood, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to facilitate this I was gonna do this after the motion, but since we're in this discussion, how do we handle all the employees that are going to be affected if she doesn't need full staff?
I have 14 part-time members of my staff that don't get paid. They don't have leave. So that is a big consideration for the library.
Mr. Thomas? Could you rotate so that everyone would fairly be?
Most of my workers work 29 hours a week. So that would be, unless we were open 40 hours a week, I don't know that we could get everybody their hours under that scenario. Especially if we're talking about only being open during.
Could you just work them equally, even if they didn't get 29 hours and they got paid? Could you work them half-time, all of them?
For the most part, yes.
Well, it's unfair if somebody doesn't have to come to work at all. I'm asking questions to get some sort of a resolution to this, because it's coming.
The reality, Mr. Chairman, is that if you listen to all of the conversations from the president's administration, they understand that some people will be at home and be paid. The money for the library workers is already in the budget, so there's no budget impact.
I completely agree. I'm just asking, how we get through that.
Can I finish, please?
Go ahead.
So I think the first thing that we need to consider is to making sure that the library completely has been sanitized and cleaned, which I'm sure there's a lot of books and stuff that need to be wiped down. All the rooms need to be sanitized, all the material. That's going to take time in itself for that to occur. I'm sure that under her direction, the director, she would be able to work those folks who cannot serve the public but are indirectly serving the public to ensure that the library is a safe and sanitary place for our families, our children, our elderly. So I don't think I think there's enough to do. I think we put it on her shoulders to make sure that.
That's what I asked. Because
I
it
didn't-
wasn't, it's not in the motion. That's why I'm bringing it up, because that will be the next question. And it's not in the,
That wasn't my motion because we weren't talking about it.
No.
We're going to go one at a time, and I addressed the closing of the library.
okay, let's go through we've got a motion on the table that the library by appointment, we've got the motion. All in favor of the original motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Roll call vote. Mr. Forehand? Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mrs. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood? Mr. Thomas? And I'll vote aye. The pay situation. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Do you have any other lingering questions while we're all here?
No, hopefully we won't catch anything.
Great, thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
Next on my list is Parks and Rec. Mr. Howard. You got time to think about all this because you got to hear all the questions.
Good evening. I would say if there's any optimism to this meeting tonight is one thing with Parks and Recreation is we're in transition with our bigger crowds. We've just come out of our winter basketball season, so maybe over 11,000, so 1,100, I should say, individuals going in and out of the building each day. Now we're heading into soccer. We're making preparation currently for soccer, and we're expecting at least 250 or more for soccer. So you multiply that by at least three times there. That's what's coming in and out of the facility. So far, I've already taken the approach of counseling the meeting, preseason parent orientation meeting, which was scheduled for Monday night. Decided to go ahead and cancel that based on what what we're experiencing now, or what is expected. We're also the activities that are currently going on right now. They're held over at the Ladysmith Community Center as well as this facility as well. The school's closing. I would say right now that doesn't necessarily affect us because our activity that we just concluded was held at the Carolina High School, so that doesn't really affect us. And the activities that are upcoming, they will be held on county property, being that soccer is held at the park. And the other concern that I have going forward is the use of the public facilities. We also manage the rentals that takes place within the county. Going forward, we do get quite a few rentals, especially in this particular building, the gymnasium, the auditorium, and the EOC room, in addition to the RAAA space. So we do handle that. So our smaller programs, we average between, it could be anywhere from 10 to 40. So again, multiply those numbers, so those numbers can increase in terms of participation or spectators at our programs. So that's where we are right now. I do have 3 part-time staff and 3 full-time staff. So we are currently dealing with our programs by talking to the parents, letting them know that we're doing extra as far as the sanitizing the places that we are using. So that's where we are right now.
Let's start with recommendations for what you would not do.
Would not do. Right now, because of the numbers in soccer, right now I would prefer to possibly just hold out. It's moving forward right now simply because of the large group that we're dealing with. I prefer not to the rentals. Dealing with the rentals, my part-time staff handles the rentals definitely, and of course by doing that, you're going to shut we have to shut the facility down, and that means that they would not have opportunity to be employed. So along the way as well. So.
Are there any rentals for the next 3 weeks?
Mrs. Long, go ahead.
Are there any rentals booked?
Yes. Yes.
Large ones or just small?
No, the rentals are pretty frequent.
I mean, numbers wise. I mean,
yeah. I would say each month it's pretty much. I can't tell you right at the specific numbers, but I would say that at least each week there's at least 2 or 3 rentals per day.
do you know how many people would come to? I mean, are we talking about an event of 100 people or 20 people? Do you know what those with the facility they rent? Do you realize how big it would be?
It could vary. If you had a funeral here, of course, enormous numbers. Then if you have basketball going on, because right this time of season, the AAU teams are picking up. So they could have a good number come in and out of the gymnasium as well.
Excuse me, Donnell, but I mean, funerals aren't booked ahead. What I'm wondering is, do you know, or can you let us know how many things are happening during this 2-week period? Is it something controllable that we could call and reschedule or postpone or control, or is it something we need to control? I mean, do you have any idea what's going on the next 2 weeks?
I do, but I do not have that before me. But
Okay.
I would say that normally it's a normal thing as far as the rental of the facility. There is at least 2 or 3 meetings throughout this building a day.
Can I ask a question?
Mr. Underwood?
Mr. Howard, do you
Yes, sir.
have the ability to sanitize all your facilities after you have an event there?
Yes.
You have the
I'll say
ability
yes.
to sanitize this whole auditorium after an event
Well,
has occurred here?
Well, Public Works managers take care of this. So Parks and Rec doesn't do that. As far as the EOC rooms, yes, actually we did that today in preparation.
After every event, you have the ability to do that.
We have to get supplies to do it. Other than that, so that would be impact. If we have the supplies, I would say yes. My staff probably could do that. Yes.
Chief Loftus? The right one.
Just for the board's knowledge, the EOC is the Emergency Operations Center. So once we go under that local declaration, we want that facility closed for all outside use. We want it sanitized so that if we have to open it up, we have a place to open it up and run operations from. Without it, or if we have to wait till someone has it rented, we're going to be behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
So So to start with, the EOC has to come off of all rentals until this ends in case we have to have it, because it's got to be clean, it's got to be ready to go.
Yeah, declaration or not, it needs to be available and clean.
Correct. So that takes care of, but that's only a fraction of the spaces that you the cleaning of these spaces is between people is going to be difficult to monumental. I mean, we don't have enough people to do all that. I mean, sweep, vacuum, that kind of stuff, yeah, but sanitize, or it is supposed to be a point of actually separation. I'm leaning towards just close the facilities. Can we talk about it from that perspective and just right now say we're going to cancel? I mean, you couldn't sanitize this place if you had 200 people in it. I mean, and it's not, I think it's 7 to 9 days something has to sit unused for the virus to actually die on its own.
3
Is it 3?
inside. Outside's completely different.
So, okay, so it's three. Except what? So this facility, you could use it every 3 days, theoretically, and it would be,
Chair, I would move that we ask you to make some phone calls and that we close rentals for 2 weeks. That will leave the emergency room available for the chief, and if things did get bad, we still have extra room if something changes in 2 weeks.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second discussion.
So when someone wants a funeral here, some other public event, it's closed, not available.
Not available.
The Lady Smith facility as well.
Everything that everything the Parks and Rec manages. That's the only way I know how to bound it, because they actually rent it. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Roll call vote. Mr. Forehand. Mr. Black.
Aye.
Mrs. Long. Mr. Underwood.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas is an aye, and I'll vote aye. And in this, let's go to the pay provision, because we have 3 full-time people and 3 part-time people.
That is correct.
Right, so let me.
Well, we haven't done that. Well,
Yeah, I mean, it's blanket.
So Mr. Howard,
Yes, sir.
if you don't have an event for those part-time people, are they scheduled the same every week, every event, or are they scheduled based on the event?
Based on the event.
Based on the event.
That is correct.
So if during your regular operation, if there were no events scheduled, then you would not use those part-time people, correct?
Not for that.
Let's okay. What would you use them for?
We use them because if we're going into soccer season. So what I do to alleviate some of the strain off of my full-time staff, they would handle certain aspects of the program.
What aspects?
Aspects such as we go about separating the kids and putting the kids from various areas on teams and all that. Yeah.
The activity is not there, so if you had those people, what would you do with them? Is there something for them to do? There's no activity.
Right.
So the people who you were using for those activities, what would you do with those folks?
They're pretty much facility. They're facility. So if there's no
But the
facility,
facility's closed.
right, that's correct. So,
All right. And there's no activity scheduled.
That's correct.
Would a worker anticipate on being paid if there was not an activity? Are they paid by the activity?
By the activity, that's correct.
So they understand that if you don't schedule an activity in the gym for 3 weeks, they don't have a paid position, correct?
That is correct.
So they already understand that. So they're not expecting to be paid 25 hours per week because that's their regular schedule, right?
I would say that is correct.
So in your estimation, how many hours would a part-time person in Park and Rec anticipate on working?
At least 25.
At least 25
That's correct.
per week.
That is correct.
We can just take the average of the
And
last
how
month
many-
and just extend it forward for 2 weeks.
How many part-time people do you have, Mr. Howard?
3.
3. All right. So
That's the way work comp does it.
what's that?
They just take an average of a predetermined looking back, and that's what they get, whatever that average is, what they get paid for the next 2 weeks. That way, people that are normally working 15 hours versus somebody normally working 25, it all works out in their pay history. And it's not hard
So
to
if
do.
they're working 25 hours a week the last 2 weeks, they get paid 25 hours a week the next 2 weeks.
Correct.
So do we
That
want
would-
to, well, let me,
that
and
would
I
be
was going to say,
something-
Mr. Thomas thought that he had done that for everybody. Can we just say that we're going to do that for all the employees because we're going to go down a list here. We're going to pay everybody their normal salary for the next 2 weeks and just take that off the table so that we're not doing this for every
Yeah,
group we talk to?
If there's no work for them, I mean, if the teams haven't been drawn up, if the uniforms haven't been ordered and things like that, then that's something for them to do, at least for a few days. So that when we do come off this, whatever.
You're ready to
we're-
go.
We hit the ground rolling and we're not 2 weeks behind ordering uniforms and getting teams organized and things like that.
I'm good with that. You want to make that motion?
But that's a department head issue. I'm just saying that's what
Right.
But I'll make a motion that we look back we get paid every 2 weeks, so 2 pay periods, 3 pay periods, and whatever the average is what we do the next 2 weeks.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas? Aye. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Yeah,
Any other questions, Mr. Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes, just clarity. Now, as far as outdoor rental, okay, so that's okay? Because we get park rentals.
I think the outdoor rentals,
Slippery slope.
I do agree.
We're gonna close the basketball court and the baseball diamond and the walking track? That's the question. That's what we're talking about.
Well, no, I understand the question. I'm looking down the table. You're going to close the basketball court over at Ladysmith Elementary that they use at night?
There's 50 people a night on there.
We don't have control of people going to the park. We don't have control. We do have control of a sponsored activity by the county where we're responsible, basically. I'm just trying to remove our responsibility. Again, I can't tell people not to go to Richmond or anywhere else. They're free to go. We're not, but we can certainly minimize the contact within buildings and things that we are responsible for.
Mr. Howard, how many rental schedules do you have for outside facilities? How many?
Right now, that's not heavy right now because the season's just shifting.
So if we leave it alone for now and say if somebody wants to schedule the baseball field, it's outside. The basketball courts we don't schedule. So for right now, if we say you can schedule outside stuff, I don't have a outside stuff.
Like the
Baseball, somebody has a baseball team, there's 6 feet between everybody, except that during bench time and batting.
pavilion rental.
You don't have many of those right now. You think you'll
Not
have
right
any in the
now,
next 2
right,
weeks?
That's correct, yeah.
Let's leave the outside. I'm looking for board.
I agree. I mean, activity is good, it's healthy, the air, it spreads. I don't think we need to mess with the parks or closing those
So we're
down.
going to leave the outside facilities. If somebody wants to use them, we're going to leave those alone, I think, for now.
Okay,
All right?
all right, appreciate that.
Canceling park and rec activities, we didn't make any determination. Are you going to cancel soccer for the next 2 weeks?
I'll hold off, yes.
I mean, I'm asking.
Yes, well, I intend to if that's,
Well, that's what I'm
Yeah.
making sure. Are we all clear? We're going to
Yes, I'm
cancel
good with
everything
that.
for the next 2 weeks and we'll look at it then.
Right.
Okay? We're all clear? Outside activities? Okay, well, I'll take a motion for outside rental, outside use and rentals.
I'll make a motion that we do not have any impact or we do not attempt to control any outdoor activities at the moment.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Nay.
Oh, Mr. Roll call vote. Mr. Forehand?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mrs. Long? Mr. Underwood?
Nay.
Mr. Thomas? A nay for Mr. Thomas, and I'll vote aye, so outdoor activities can still be used. Or outdoor facilities, I'm sorry.
okay.
Visitor Center. Oh, Parks and Rec soccer is canceled for 2 weeks. I mean, the start of it for 2 weeks, a motion.
Might be a fishing clinic and other things. There's-
Anything, any activity Parks and Rec sponsored.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
This is a suspension for 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that a second?
Sure.
I have a motion and a second to suspend all Parks and Rec activities for the next 2 weeks. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Howard.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening. Visitor Center.
Yes, sir. Economic development, as you well know, divided into two parts, not just physically,
Correct.
but functionally. On the economic development side, we have plenty to do, including Mrs. Beard, who is working with me on a recruitment, which you may have seen in some of our reports. So on our side, the economic development side, I'm confident that we can sequester ourselves in such a way that we don't cause additional exposure to the virus and so forth. But on the travel counselor side, they usually are out in the public. They would have been at the Meadow Event Park, for example, at the Secretariat event, but that's canceled, so they're not going to be a part of that. They do, however, meet 30, 50, 90 people in buses coming from out of town. This is somewhat of a conduit to a potential infection from elsewhere. I'm also concerned that most of my travel counselors are over 60 years old. Some have underlying conditions, and it only takes one person who has no symptoms whatsoever, which can happen over a 2-week period, so they probably think they're fine, can come in and interact with our travel counselors or buy something in our gift shop, so there's standing right next to each other, exchanging physical objects and so forth, money and what have you. I think they are particularly vulnerable. And I would ask the board if they would consider allowing them to close down for 2 weeks. And also, if there's anything alive in that room on the visitor center side, I'll give that chance to die down too. But I think these are particularly vulnerable people to this illness. And I think it also adds a way of being a conduit to a real problem that exists elsewhere. And I don't want to particularly be the source to bring it here.
So I'm hearing we should go ahead and close the visitor center for the next 2 weeks, and I don't have an issue with that at all. Personally, I think that it is a lot of traffic and a lot of potential risk.
I
Mrs.
just
Long?
have a question or request. Is there a way that you and Ms. Beard can get the word out to the bus lines, the tourist companies that tend to stop there, let them know ahead of time that we're going to be closed for at least 2 weeks so that we don't look totally unfriendly and unconsiderate to those tour groups that do come to Caroline?
I can speak to Mrs. Beard about that. I think if she has those connections with those that stop on a regular basis, then she should be able to
We
reach
could
out to
probably
them.
also get a VDOT sign on 95 that says visitor center closed, couldn't we?
I think we probably could.
Thank
Because
you.
that may be facilitate that
Yeah, because
answer.
they've got the restroom facilities at the state
Yep.
information center. I just don't want anybody to think we're not
No,
considerate.
I do appreciate that very much. Everyone does seem to understand that this is a pull together kind of situation that does require kind of extreme measures
Right.
sometimes.
Thank you.
So with the, again, this kind of goes back to Mr. Howard as well. Friday to Friday will be the 27th, so that as things are, assuming things
Change,
get better, improve,
correct.
that we'll be back to normal the 28th of March, which is a Saturday. Is that what we're all thinking? And if we need to extend it,
I
At
think we
some
should
point.
go to a Monday on this, avoid the weekend.
okay?
That's a very good point, and we have not thought that
Based
through
on
on
the
some of these
emergency.
others.
We don't know when.
Mr. Thomas? They don't have the man My guess is they're gonna leave those open. Our problem is we have folks in there all the time, which is a different situation than an open facility. You can walk in and walk out and handle it any way you want. I mean, that is the difference. Right. We can, I think that would be a good point to Mrs. Beard, that we need to point out where they can go. Were we, 1 April? I mean, or 30 March, go to that Monday?
We can start it. I just need, I just want to be clear. Are we
I think you're
exactly
right.
2 weeks? Are we 2 weeks and 2 days to start back on the Monday the 30th, or?
I think going to that Monday gives us an opportunity to actually determine, or maybe even Tuesday, because that way Monday, if we had to, we could actually extend it.
Our next meeting is when?
The 24th, so that won't even, we won't even have any idea.
Okay. Well, we'll have 11 days of an idea.
That's true. But I do agree with you that going to that Monday is probably better than ending it on a Friday. Other board do we have a motion?
We can just say 2 weeks and bring it back up for any extension on the 24th. We'll be meeting again.
Okay.
Okay.
Turn your mic.
The board's going to need to discuss it. I would think assess it again at the end of the 2-week period, and the only opportunity for that would be the work session, or the meeting where the budget is going to be presented, which is going to be a busy meeting as it is. On the 24th, I mean, unless you call a special meeting, the next opportunity after that would be, I think it's April 14th.
Yeah, the 24th is 4 days before it's supposed to expire. We should have a good idea if it's.
That could be our
worse or-
only other agenda item that evening, is just to discuss the closure policy.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the pleasure?
My thoughts are just keep it 2 weeks, and we can readdress on the 24th.
Okay. You want to make a motion?
Sure.
We're doing that right now. We have not.
For these 2 week suspensions of all discussions, it'll be for two weeks, Friday to Friday, 13th to 27th, to be discussed again on the 24th of March to see if that needs to be extended.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas, aye.
Thank you.
Next, Commission of the Revenue. Mr. Bassoon. It was Visitor Center.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As you can imagine, my office, and I'll speak a little bit for Beth, but
she's next. Beth, do you want to come down at the same time? Since you guys actually do this side by side, it may be easier to address both issues at the same time.
we're the county in itself, I think, with my office, is in a little bit of a pinch here with assessing.
You have DMV and assessment.
Well, we have assessing, and that's going along. We do streamline a lot of things, but there is still some manual stuff that needs to be done. So if we're going to hit the scheduled time frames for everything, we're going to need to continue to work. If my office was to close for any reason, we would need to allow that same amount of time on the back end. Everything we do goes in conjunction with the treasurer and getting her bills out, being as that we're prorated, we're twice a year billing. Everything's going to need to be shifted down. But in saying that, we have been taking precautions in there with wiping down, sanitizer, all kinds of stuff. DMV is very, very inundated with traffic. The last email that came out today that I saw from the full service DMV, from the guys that handle our select, said that just let them know if the locality chooses to do something to make them aware so they can post it that Caroline's DMV select would be closed and so forth. However, again, it affects everything on her side. If we close just the DMV, then I have staff in DMV that I can keep busy. So we're in a little bit of a conundrum where I don't want my folks in the face of the public either, but what do? I don't know that you close the Commissioner of Revenue's office.
Well, let's start with DMV because that was first on my list. Can we start and talk about just that first? Let's sort of separate that. Your thoughts, Mrs. Curran's thoughts?
Well, I mean, DMV is it's a service we provide to the taxpayer. But there is, I think, higher traffic with that right now than it is with anything else. And if we, they do have the option to go online to do their, transactions. If we took like a, 2-week hiatus from doing DMV and see what transpires. I don't know, I hate doing that because it is, I think a lot of people use it, but we have people coming from Spotsylvania to, in like Fredericksburg area to use our services. So, we're putting our people at risk for not just Caroline County folks.
Board members?
What's
Thoughts?
what's the counter configuration? Is there a barrier?
No, we're working on that. I've been asking for a barrier for a while, and that's in the budget, and I think we're gonna get something up. But no, my folks sit down below the counter, and a man your height can reach right over and grab the back of my employee's chair. So there's a lot of leaning over and pointing, oh, I did fill that out, and a lot of spittle and a lot of stuff coming across the counter. So in general, it's not a good setup, but for this, to send a request to, or send a notice to DMV and let them know Caroline County will not have DMV Select services for 2 weeks, I don't think is not doable.
So you think it is doable?
It's very doable.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it is very doable.
Okay. I'm just making sure we didn't have a negative in there.
Well, we have an MOU that says we have to be open so many weeks a year, so many hours a week and all this, but with a state of emergency like this, with them being a state agency, I think we can probably get around that.
Mr. Chair, could we close the commissioner's office to the public but let employees continue to work? Is that an option?
Well, all of that is an option. I mean, let me start with, if we close DMV, what is the next level of traffic for both of your offices? Does that cut it in half, 2/3?
Yeah.
2/3?
I'd say, probably over half right now.
And that would just be, so you'd be dealing with just citizens when you get rid of DMV. What are your thoughts on, do your offices want to be open to citizens, or do you want to shut offices down?
I don't see how we can be. I mean, we're being careful. We're wiping counters. They brought in hand sanitizer. I mean, they've got options. They can pay at the bank. They can pay, online. But I don't see how we shut the treasurer's office down to the general public. I mean, even if it was just me, as long as nobody gets sick. I mean, then that opens up a whole different scenario. But for now, I think as long as we're being careful, we wouldn't want to shut.
Mr. Bassoon, your office?
Well, the other caveat for me, we do have the early relief program that's, going on until March 31st. If for some reason we were to close to the public, we could extend that program out, because I would hope the board would move everything out, for posting the books and setting rates and all this kind of stuff, and goes hand in hand with handing it over to Beth so she can have her time to get the bills out by, in the appropriate time. I still have elderly coming in for that. We still have all kinds of people coming in to do the state tax program. So we have a lot of traffic. It's scary, but until someone gets sick, I don't know if other county offices are closing and we have to be there. Maybe some sort of incentive for the folks that have to work while it's open, unless the county wants to close to the public.
Well, we haven't closed any other offices.
I guess he brings up a good point. I mean, have other surrounding jurisdictions, have anyone in the surrounding jurisdictions besides the schools? I know that's a different entity.
Remember, this is the first day the governor's declared the state of emergency. So you're in the first, first 8 hours of anything being done. So everybody's going to go, what has everybody else done? And they're going to look at us, what did we do?
Right.
I know the commissioner in Amelia, she's closing due to their county language that they put out today. She emailed everyone a copy. I can forward it to Mr. Cully if you guys want to see it.
I guess my question is, do you all feel you need to close for 2 weeks?
See, I say no. I mean,
What we do goes hand in hand, so
Could we construct temporary barriers to provide?
With
some
DMV closed,
level of
we're past that. So now you're to your regular, is there something you can do in your office, Mr. Bassoon, to better facilitate? I mean, could you, is there something you could do temporary?
I'll let Ted speak on that. They came through with a sample piece of glass the other day.
We could certainly put up some temporary barriers. It might help if the commissioner could, right now there's several counters.
Right, just
that's
use
being
the
used.
door.
Maybe condense that to a couple counters instead of, the 5 or 6 that's currently being used, and we could put up some temporary barriers until we can get some permanent ones in place.
Is that doable in the next, I mean,
Yeah, it's not going to be anything fancy, but it's certainly something we can do, first of the week, if not over the weekend.
Mrs. Long?
Knowing the staff that these two have, I think they've got good common sense and that they know the basic safety protocol. I also think our citizens have to take responsibility. I mean, if they're not feeling well, they know they need to stay home, but we also have to keep people going, and we've got budget coming up, and we've got paychecks to write, and we need to keep the money part doing. And I think if we get rid of DMV, like you said, a lot of people not from Caroline come in there, put up some temporary barriers. Your staff knows how to wash their hands and wipe down counters. I think we have to go on living smartly.
Mr.
That's
Black?
my feel.
No, I mean, I'm fine with that. The other thing too is, I think, Mr. Lambert, I hate to get you back up again, but we've installed throughout the facilities, hand sanitizer stations and so forth, correct?
Yes,
Yes, for the general public and the employees, correct?
that is correct. We have a lot of product on order.
Yeah.
We started getting deliveries yesterday on that. I think admin upstairs and downstairs was covered today. I think we identified,
dispensing stations and
Right.
we have like 150, 160 locations we've identified we want these at. We've got some in planning, I believe, late this afternoon. More products coming in on Monday, and we hope.
So that is very easily seen by the general public.
Absolutely,
Yes.
yes. And
Okay.
it's on both the public side and the employee side, so it's kind of a first offense for everyone.
Right. Okay, absolutely. Thank you.
So we're going to leave it to the discretion of actually change their offices around to actually make it so that it's safe for employees with the temporary situation and leave DMV is closed and then allow them to run their offices?
Two more things from
Yes,
my
sir.
office. Our passport program, our counterparts at the federal side had also said to notify them if we wanted to curtail that operation for a little while. I would suggest to do that. If we're going to do the DMV, we might as well do the passport.
Okay, and what else,
program.
anything else?
The only other thing I asked, and I'm currently working with admin on this, we want to post 8.5 by 11 paperwork around that's not insensitive to folks, but to educate them. Put your cough in your elbow, different things, and we want to post it. But with us being in the county admin building, unless the county wants to come up with something to post everywhere, I feel it necessary that I do this in my office. And it says Commissioner Revenue's office. It doesn't say the Caroline County Admin Building. I know it's a little sticky. I don't want to speak for the county, but I feel I need to do what I have to do in my office to post these notices up. And I forwarded a copy to Alan or Mr. Cully and Mr. Parton for their review to make sure that it sounds accordingly.
I actually don't have a problem with that. I think we need to
That's fine.
post public service announcements as say that, call it as you would. I think that's what those become. And I think we should get those right up front when people walk in the door so they see them. And the passport, and what was the other one? DMV, Can we just amend and put passports in with DMV and close that for the next 2 weeks as well?
So moved.
Do I have a
So
second?
motion.
Motion to second to close the passport process as well. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Thomas voted aye.
Nay.
And Mr., roll call vote. Mr. Forehand?
I to close the passport service.
Correct. Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mrs. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Passport service, yes. I was talking.
Okay, passport, Mr. Thomas, passport? Aye. Okay, it's all aye. It was a misunderstanding. Sure.
The DMV, I mean, they've got to be there because if they're paying by credit card, they've got to actually put it in the machine at that time.
Any other issues while you're both here that,
We didn't vote on the first part. Commissioner Evans, we didn't vote.
did I lose track of something? I didn't vote, I lost DMV, I'm sorry. I got wrapped up in, I thought I did vote on DMV closing. I did not, Mrs. I have a
Mr. Chairman, I move that we make a motion to close the DMV for 2 weeks.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Thomas votes aye. Motion carries. Mr. Sadler.
On the CDC website, there are approved, downloadable, and printable notices similar to what he's recommending that follow the CDC specific guidelines as far as this prevention. So it may be a resource that they should consider printing out those notices.
Can we do that and post them? I think everybody's sort of in agreement. We need to do the public service announcement thing. It helps everybody downstairs. So if we could, if you could facilitate that, that would be great. And we can leave it to staff to figure out how to get those posted. Any other questions?
Just to clarify, what would the dates, what would the begin date be? And
Monday to next Friday, to the following Friday. It's 2 weeks.
Was it the Monday, the 24th?
It'll be Friday to Friday, so it would be 13th to the, starts this Monday and goes to the 27th.
Okay.
Mr. President,
16th is Monday.
16th. Are we doing 16th through the?
Correct.
27th.
The governor's shutdown period, 16th through the 27th.
Okay. Thank you.
The reason you heard 24 was we're going to be discussing when we're going to,
What we're going to do.
what we're going to do on the 24th, just reviewing tonight's motions.
I just want to give the guy at DMV a heads up tonight
Okay.
with the dates. Thank you all.
Mr. Sealer,
Sir,
we did not vote either way regarding the continuation of their offices or not. Is that necessary for us to vote?
I think since we didn't close them, the continuation is the continuation.
Okay.
Clerk of the court. And I know this is sort of different, but I know we're going to get questions and just wanted to have an opportunity.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I do not want to close, obviously, but it's really up to my judge. In the end, the circuit court clerk's office can't close without an order from the judge.
Okay.
So it's going to be up to Judge Deneke on that. I'm sure that the Commonwealth Attorney has a lot of input on this. We have a lot of docket coming up, including a jury trial that's coming up within that time frame that is already on the docket.
Mr. Mahoney, go over to the microphone so that everybody can hear you.
I got a text message about a half hour before I came over here. The Supreme Court has delegated closures down to the local judges. And I can tell you that right now, I think Judge Deneke, our circuit court judge, is of a mind to stay open.
Okay.
As is the general district. J&D, I'm going to have a conversation with him. But our courtrooms are set up in a way that if we're smart about it, we can use social distancing. You know, we just don't have everybody in the courtroom at the same time. I would hate to think what it would do to us if we started continuing cases. Because of this thing called speedy trial, I might end up having to actually drop cases, put an end to speedy trial, and then re-indict later on down the road. So I'm going to advocate for keeping the courtrooms open as long as we can.
Okay, I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity because we'll all get questions and I don't want to go, oh, I didn't think to ask them. So that just helps clarify that. So thank you both for coming this
Mr.
evening.
Lambert, Mr. Seeley, could I,
Yes, sir.
is there, I know what your counter looks like. Is there any ability to put a barrier? They have a chest height.
We have talked about putting a glass barrier there, but our office is set up so that we help the public. That's what we do.
Agreed.
And if you're not working at that counter, you're going down the hall with that patron into the land records room and sitting down at a computer right next to them. So I don't know really how much good it would be to go to the expense to put that glass up there. It's because we interact with the public. That's what we do with the circuit court clerk's office. We bring them back into our office to do probate, which is the other reason I absolutely would not want to be closing the clerk's office, because we do provide so much public service that is not available anywhere else. I mean, you have people coming in from out of state for a funeral. They need to get into the clerk's office to have probate done. Otherwise, they're having to fly back from out of state. So we want to be there and be available for them. But we have a really good hand sanitizing program going now. My clerk staff has always been very conscientious. So long before this ever came about, we had little alcohol bottles on everybody's desk. We have them on the counter. We have them in the record room.
Alcohol bottles?
Well, the alcohol cleaner. Lots of alcohol in it, but anyway. But we have the cleaners. We have Lysol. We spray and clean the counters, the computers. The ladies have been very diligent with that and very conscientious about it. Even if they've handled money, that we wash your hands or get your cleaner out or your sanitizer, because a lot of germs are on money.
Money's
on
the number one.
And that's a bad one. So that and those computer keyboards in that lab. So we're being very diligent, and I think we'll be fine. So
Okay. Thank you
very
again.
much. Okay.
Mr. Fincham, Community Development. You get to cover the wide swath.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we plan on being open Monday morning at 8:30 for the public and 7 when staff starts to arrive, and dark 30 when Mr. Whiteman gets there. We've actually forwarded information to the county administrator regarding continuation of operations plans for the department. Mr. Lambert has assured us that the window for the front counter area will be here by the end of next week. So some of that physical separation that we're talking about should be hopefully will be in place halfway through this first 2-week period. We've also, I think internally, we can do some things between the public area and the staff area. As you know, we have a relatively small public area, but we could actually, I think, limit the number of people at the counter at any one time, and call people up as to work with them as necessary. We've even identified that if we had to close the public area to the public, there are ways that we can continue operations. We could expand our online permitting. We could, establish a pickup and drop off area so that we can continue processing permits. We still have inspections scheduled for next week. We still have, several major developments that we're working through the subdivision and site plan process. And we still have the public coming in to make application and to ask questions. So we are cognizant that we have several employees who recently have had some respiratory issues that are still in the recovery phase of those illnesses. So we potentially have people that could be perhaps compromised if there was some exposure. But staff has enhanced their cleaning of public spaces, door handles, the counter area, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, multiple times throughout the day. They themselves are, using hand sanitizer and washing their hands frequently. And again, I think the public advisories, placing those, I think we feel relatively comfortable for the next 2-week period. And I think we have contingencies in place that we can implement if necessary.
It sounds to me like they're covered. I don't know. I just wanted a report just to make sure we were good. So thank you, Mr. Fincham. It doesn't sound like there's anything we can do there. Let me go to Sheriff. Sheriff Lipp, I want to give every department an opportunity to at least.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We are doing a lot of things, obviously, that our people are prepared for. With the CDC information, everything about the virus that's out there, our people are aware of that. We're in a little bit different situation because of the contacts that we make. The paper handling that we'll have, whether it's a summons, whether it's a warrant, it's going through so many different things. So we're prepared to have our people wear gloves. What I can inform the board is the fact that, which would be helpful to put out, that we are going to limit people coming into our offices. For example, if you need a report, you come to the front door, we will meet you at the front door rather than have them come in to expose everyone. If they need a deputy, the deputies will be there. We will no longer bring the people into where the room is for all the deputies. Again, we'll keep them in the police car, so they'll have access to the magistrate's office, to us, 24/7. The shelter is a little bit of a different story, that what we want the people to do, if they need to call the shelter, we'll always take those animals, but we're going to limit the public from going in just to adopt, if you would, during this time period. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, that we're working with everyone, and hopefully we'll keep business going the way that we should.
Questions for the sheriff? Thank you so much.
Okay. Yep.
And last but not least, I figured we'd save fire and rescue because I figure there's not much we can do, and you are on the front line of all of this.
Yep, we'll certainly be at work 24 hours a day as staffing allows. So we have prepared plans for reduction in staffing all the way down to 25%, and what that looks like as far as station closures and backfilling with that. Wednesday night we met with the volunteer leadership, and we talked about trying to get commitment and buy-in if those things do happen on the career side, and we'll continue to work with them to fill our holes as needed. We have canceled all of our training classes. That included spring school, partly because spring school is funded by the state, and the state has pulled out its participation in the program. So we will be postponing that. If we can reschedule it, we'll see how that looks here in the near future. Also, our CPR classes that run through our building, which are numerous during the month, we have canceled all of those, so we won't have the mannequins coming and going, which is an obvious cross-contamination issue for everyone involved. One thing I would like to just mention to the board, it's CDC guidance to limit or to try to discourage events of 250 people or more. Certainly Meadow Event is one of those places where we could see more than 250 people, but so is the sports complex. And bringing in kids from all over the place for a sports thing is an issue. So we'd like to put that on record. We want to discourage those events from occurring. Certainly that would be up to the board if we put out a press release or anything to that nature. Other than that, we have trained our folks and we'll continue to train our volunteers on our precautionary measures. We have another meeting Monday morning for our staff, which will be pushing that guidance out to the field. We've also called for a 2 o'clock meeting with our emergency management partners, which is a lot of the people you see behind us in the county, to go over the changes that we've talked about here tonight, as well as introduce some folks. We've had a lot of change. We've got a new bus transportation director and a few other folks in our EOC. We haven't really opened in the last couple of years, so we want to get everybody in there, get more acclimated, and get familiar with the new faces. So, any questions?
Questions for Chief Loftus? Do we want to set anything about a limit of 250? I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I don't know that we have many facilities. No, I mean, just a cautionary on the 250 from us. It didn't matter. It was something Chief Loftus mentioned. No, we just, Chief Loftus?
Yeah, we'd like to put something out, especially to those places we know that could do that, to make sure that they've gotten that word. We don't have an enforcement means.
That's
Right, we don't have a people police that are going to enforce that.
Did you turn your microphone on, Mrs. Long?
You're talking a public advisory
Yes, ma'am.
notice going out?
Just
to
a public
them.
advisory.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
And that can come from emergency management, or that can come from the board, however you'd like it to go.
I think it means more coming from emergency management than it does. I mean, Board of Supervisors doesn't mean much to folks. If they see emergency services or something advisory, I think you'll get a lot further with it. But I don't have an issue with actually reminding people of that.
All right.
Anything else we didn't cover? Sheriff?
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention the Caroline Detention Facility. I have been in contact with the superintendent there. Again, they're following all the federal protocols that they need to. So I want to make you aware of that.
Okay.
Too.
Public Works, I think, is an entity in and of itself, and that we did have the water cutoff. Okay. Okay. Hearing nothing else, Mrs. Hall, did we make motions on it? I do want to make sure I didn't skip one because we would get involved in it. Are we good?
You made a motion on everything that you discussed. If there's something that you got left off, then obviously we don't have it.
Right. I think I covered everything that I made a list of. Let me just say that. I made it as I sat down. I don't think the governor has declared a state of emergency, and we're just clarifying the local issues, which is what we've done tonight.
Mr. Chairman, can we direct staff, and I don't mean to take up their Friday evening or so forth, so that we can get information out like as soon as possible to the public, so that that way they know, here's what we made the decisions on tonight. So that way, I mean, it's not Monday and then people are waking up and they can't do this or can't do this. So that way we can kind of get information out to the public on what decisions were made.
They're saying they can work on that. We're going to put that on our webpage and our Facebook page. Okay. They're going to take care of that.
Is that possible to do? Okay.
I think as long as we get it up this weekend so that we're not catching anybody, you're right, Monday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're poised to do that.
Okay.
So just to confirm, we're not impacting any convenience center hours, staffing. Those are open as normal.
One other thing. Say that again, Mr. Point.
The convenience centers, we're not impacting those at all.
I don't believe so. The contact there is come and go.
Right.
I do want to be able to do a declaration of emergency due to the coronavirus. We got to get the language straightened out in this, and we'll sign a declaration. But it's mostly just what the governor said, and the top language has got to get fixed. So we'll do an actual declaration. So if we could just pass a declaration of emergency due to the coronavirus, if I could get a motion for that.
I would like to read it before I.
It's here in. Let me.
I mean,
I think if you can just give us authorization or declare the local emergency tonight, we can come back with the actual resolution at a later date.
We can pass this at the next board meeting. We've done everything local.
We have 0 cases in the county. We're going to declare an emergency. I mean, what's the advantage?
It gives us access to state and federal funds and the ability to make
that was my next question. So what actually is the result of us doing this?
It gives us certain statutory authorities above and beyond what's codified. Same thing with the governor.
So we can declare an emergency in advance of an event. We sometimes do that in advance of a hurricane. This is no different, but it allows that money to start flowing down to the localities for expenses. It lists some purchasing limits for us. It gives the board ability to, enact certain things in the community. And it also, we're still waiting for the governor if he could only declare it an evacuation and those kind of things.
All right, that's what I was looking for. I said, what actually does it do?
Correct. It just
Because we-
opens the door to another section of code.
Okay.
Basically.
Agreed. And I know, speaking with Mr. Cully some years back, it bypasses the board for some things, some administrative procurement, among other things, but yes, okay.
And that's all, the top language has got to get sort of corrected. The rest of it's just the governor's language and declaring that it's an emergency that now exists.
Okay.
We can pass this at the next one, but we're here. I just thought if we got it done, then it would get signed. What's the pleasure? Do we want to do this or we want to wait? It doesn't matter to me. I'm just giving everybody the option.
I mean, if it deals with funding, we might as well do it now.
Right, as long as it's reviewed by Ben or what.
Oh, yeah, this
whoever
is
we
gonna get-
need,
right.
So that we know it's appropriate for the situation and it releases funds. I'm fine with moving along as long as we have it reviewed first.
Is there a next level we go to when we actually have an actual emergency?
This covers everything that happens from here on out. So
Okay.
if we actually had a pandemic of some sort, we would then be eligible for funds and be able to order things immediately. Here comes Chief Loftus.
Part of this is once you declare a local emergency, we'll start tracking our spending. Once there is money available, we'll have all that documentation at the end of the event. We can apply for that FEMA funding, which is being passed through from the state.
But there's no like real emergency
No, this is it.
level.
This
Okay,
is it. And over the years, it's changed from, you're in dire straits and you declare a local emergency to this preemptive approach.
Okay.
Druthers? I need a motion if the board so desires.
I move that we go forward with drafting the state,
Declaration of local and state
of
emergency due to the
emergency.
coronavirus.
That.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion to second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Thomas? Aye. Okay. I'm just trying to get you on record. Hearing nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn our special called meeting.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion a second.
Second.
Motion a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I know,
Staff,
Mr.
thank
Thomas.
you for coming out.